It's betting, Jim, but not as we know it.
How dare you? Are you just talking to yourself?
2,
0.
7.
It is 10 minutes to 2 p.m. on Thursday, the 20th of July, 2023, and you are listening to the BashCast. Coming up in this afternoon's BashCast, Tom recaps the Smart Bash networking event, the good, the bad, the negative EV blackjack and the Jaeger Bombs that cost £1,500. The Women's World Cup is underway. What edges are we looking for there? And given the goals in 2019, will it be overs and overs and overs and overs? We have an email segment, some praise, some trolls, feedback from the BTC segment in the last BashCast, and a technical question about closing line value. And we end with some words of honesty ahead of the school summer holiday break as Tom goes on the hunt for a new best friend. All of that and more coming up in the BashCast this afternoon. On the 6th of July at 6 p.m. In the Empire Casino Sports Bar in London, we had the first Smart Bash networking event. This was a low-key event, didn't make a big thing about it before. The reason for that was it was very much a sort of deliberate strategy to keep it low-key, to keep it invite-only, small number of highly skilled invitees for two reasons. One, so that we can have it as a sort of test event to see if this kind of thing works for the future. So maybe if this worked, we don't want you don't want to go gung-ho, have it for 100, 200 people in year one. We thought, there's going to be a lot of mistakes made and lessons learned, so let's keep it low-key. And two, it was really so that we could have a sort of discussion around the current gambling environment, the white paper, the narrative around gambling, how it's always negative, and so on and so forth. So that was the idea going into it. Getting the right people in the room was important for number one. So it was kept a little bit, I don't know, under the radar. We teamed up with the Smart Betting Club instead of doing it alone. I think when you've got two organizations doing it, it gives a lot more credibility. Because if it was, for example, just the Smart Betting Club, it could be seen as sort of a marketing event just for the Smart Betting Club. If it was just bookie bashing, it could just be seen something for bookie bashing members or a marketing event for bookie bashing. It was neither of those things, and it wasn't a marketing event. It was meant to be a networking event and a conversation. So the sort of power of having two separate individual entities coming together and organizing this, I thought was tangible. At least I thought that. We did announce it on Twitter the day before. And of course, I don't know what else to expect, but the first comment is someone tagging Spanky, the USA-based high-profile professional gambler, pro sports bettor, and head of Be Better Betters. Tagged him and said, you need to ask for royalties for the Smart Bash event. Royalties, eh? I mean, what's this about? Well, Spanky created a big Las Vegas event called the Bet Bash. He created this. I'm not entirely sure of the year, but I think the third one was in 23. I don't know how much lockdown affected it, but I'm guessing the first one was either in 2020 or 2021, something like that. This is a sort of big conference, 100, 200, 300 people or more. They've got like showgirls there, and it's very different to what we were doing. We, through the Smart Bash event, calling it the Smart Bash from the name Smart Betting Club, which was originated in the early 2000s, and Bookie Bashing, which was registered in 2014. Okay, so we took Smart from Smart Betting Club and Bash from Bookie Bashing and created Smart Bash. And I was aware of Bet Bash, but I didn't put two and two together and think that there would be any kind of confusion about our event and their event. Also, I'm not going to lie, we started in 2014. So, I mean, unless in 2014 we created a time machine, went forward to 2020, had a look at what Spanky was doing, saw that he created the Bet Bash, went back to 2014 and decided to call ourselves Bookie Bashing ahead of the time, it would have been difficult to have ripped it off. But we did get tagged and said, these guys are patently ripping off Bet Bash and Spanky. He deserves his tribute. I said the other possibility is the event's coasted by SBC and Bookie Bashing. With all due respect, and by the way, I don't believe he had any due respect, you have lifted their marketing material word for word. Must just be a coincidence. Laughing face. Why are people like this? Why are they like this? I mean, why are they like this? Lifted their marketing material. There's no marketing material because it's a private event, invite only, and it's not a marketing event, it's a network event. We did claim this, but again, Mr. Know-It-All, Mr. Phil Bull, BSc, I always like to put my academic achievements into all of my sort of social media communication. So he then tells us that you copied, I mean, he's doubling down, the name and the marketing materials and then promoted it on here, upside down face. You don't do yourselves any favors by obfuscating. You know, when you see that word written down, you know what it means, but I've just realized I've never said it in my life before. The dictionary says obfuscate. The spelling changes will deform some familiar words and obfuscate their etymological origins. To be fair to him, it's a very good use of that word. He then tags Spanky yet again at Spanky. Cool with your project being uncannily similar to this one. And I did tell him I'm absolutely cool with Spanky giving the Bet Bash an uncannily similar name to Bookie Bashing, which started 5 or 6 years earlier. It always ends up like that. Completely missing the point of what we're trying to do, but there you go. So I got up at crack of dawn, headed over to the train station, parked my car in Birmingham International train station, jumped on the train. As always, I've booked a seat, I've reserved a seat, and then I get to my seat, and the sign says that the seat is unreserved, and there's an old lady sitting in there. So what do you do? Like, what am I going to do? Like, it's not her fault because she's just sat down on a seat that says it's unreserved. Am I going to chuck an old lady off her seat because I've booked it? No, I'm not going to do that. So I think some other people would. So I ended up standing for 3/4 of the bleeding journey all the way down there. Get down to the event. I'm fasting all day, which was strategy error number 1, but we'll come back to that. We had a look at the venue, and when we got to the venue, everything looked fine. The idea was they were going to bring food out at 6:30 and food out at 9. So we were going to have people arrive, do some food for everyone, fill everyone up, do some things, so like panels and presentations, more food just to fill people up even more. We needed to spend $12.50 behind the bar to break even on our deposit, which I didn't think was going to be a problem with 60 people. London prices £20 a head. I thought on average some people might spend 30, 40, some people might spend 10. We'll get there, I thought. And the only thing that we really needed to sort out was sound. They couldn't find the microphone to attach to the speakers, but they promised us when we went away at about 3:00 that they would be able to find the microphone, attach it to the speakers, everything like that. So that was all cool. Did my best to sort of behave myself in the afternoon. I had about 101 different messages asking, do I want to go for a pint in this pub and that pub and this pub and that pub? And my issue is once I start, I'm not going to stop. So I wanted to start as late as possible. The other issue I have, especially if I'm going to be standing and speaking and organising, is a phenomena that I have been party to all my adult life since I was 18 years old. And this is something called the infinite pee cycle. Okay? So my bladder, I mean, I know it's too much information, but here you go. It's never been the strongest in terms of, you can sit with my mate Dan, he's 6'5", and you sit and drink with him and he'll have 6 pints, 7 pints before he goes to the toilet. Whereas I'm half a pint down and I'm gone, right? But I do, especially when I'm fasting as well. For some reason, the two things that exacerbate it are alcohol and fasting. I think the fasting because I drink so much water and coffee when I'm fasting. What can happen, if I give you an example of the Birmingham Christmas market. The Birmingham Christmas market can be huge, and there's like one set of toilets, and very, very busy, crowded bars and very, very busy, crowded areas. Terrorist dream, to tell you the truth. And if you're stuck in the middle of it, what you can do is you can get your big Stein, your big beer, and you can drink it, and maybe have a second, and then I need the loo, and I'll go over to the loo, and it takes forever. And I get to the loo, and then you get back, and by the time you're back, I need to go to the toilet again. And this can get so bad, if you imagine a graph with the y-axis being the distance from the toilet and the x-axis being time, okay? In certain particular setups, I can find myself in a loop, an infinite loop of doing nothing but going backwards and forwards to the toilet. And it can ruin a night. So one of the issues I might have had if I'd started at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon and just continued straight through would be to fall into the infinite pee cycle. And that wasn't where I wanted to go. So tried to behave myself, but then got there. And when I got there, about 4 different people bought me a drink at the same time. So I was quadruple parked. And that was the beginning and the end for me. So it kicked off with the Gamblers Consumer Forum. This is Andrew Woodman, who we've had on the BashCast before, and Abby McGregor, who are going to really be important on the gambling landscape over the next 12 months, especially with a lot of fight back to the white paper. They have a 5-point plan going forward. If you want to know more about this, go to thegamblersconsumerforum.com. They want to call for a change in culture at the Gambling Commission, so it actually does the job of a regulator to represent and protect the interests of consumers, and particularly by correcting poor market practice. And then if that's not achieved, they want a new regulator. They want to campaign for a panel of objective qualified clinicians who are experts in addiction recovery to advise the government. They want to strongly object against the use of affordability checks. They want to call for the creation of a government panel made up of ordinary gamblers, as well as independent bookmakers and sporting industry representatives, to directly influence government policy. And they aim to achieve this through a strong social media presence, a media campaign, a lobbying campaign, and by responding to consultations and inquiries. There's probably no one better to fight our cause. I mean, we've had Brian Chappell, but he's a one-man band over at Jimmy Justice on Twitter. He's not particularly well just now. He couldn't make the event. He sent his best wishes. A one-man band wasn't going to solve this problem. Outfits like Bookie Bashing and Smart Betting Club, they could be seen to have ulterior motives. We're not going to solve this problem. Independent and standalone punters aren't going to solve this problem. Heaven forbid, bookmakers aren't going to solve this problem. And heaven forbid, the government's not going to solve this problem either. And even organisations such as the Horse Betting Forum, often quoted, the structure of those guys, the way that they have to sort of agree on with a vote, it's not the forum to fight our side. These are our best chances, and I would recommend everyone gets behind them and supports them. So, go and have a listen to the last Smart Betting Club podcast if you want to have a chance to hear what they're about. But they did a presentation for about an hour. That was excellent. Just before then, the food did come out, and I recognised a mistake that I made. You come up to Worcestershire, 60 of you, I'll spend 1,250 quid on food, and you will eat a lot of food. At least you will notice the food. At least you'll recognise that food exists. Blink and you missed it down at the Empire Casino. And I guess what I got wrong is I didn't translate Leicester Square prices from Worcestershire prices. And yeah, I mean, like we ordered a load of food, but the guys went around with the trays. I ordered fish and chips. I imagined like fish and chips. What actually it was like a tiny little pot with a 2-inch bit of fish, like an hors d'oeuvre, like a fancy thing. It was delicious. It was just, you could eat it all in less than half a bite, and like 3 chips. And you have that, well, you've had your fish and chips. And although we had other things like burger sliders, you could have inhaled the burger slider, delicious as it was, and not really noticed that you'd consumed anything. So I think I had like one tiny little bite to eat. That was my fast broken. No more food. Continue on the drinking. Started to spell a little bit of danger for me. We then had a panel, and we had problems with both the presentation and the panel. And the problems was they couldn't find the microphone. They just couldn't find the microphone. That was problem number one. So they got another microphone, but it wasn't attached to any of the speakers. So they brought their own speaker. That speaker was terrible, not loud enough, and had this sort of feedback retort going on that made, you know, if you shouted into the microphone, it probably almost would have been better to have put the microphone away and used raised voices. What it meant was that it was quite difficult in the middle and at the back to hear what anyone was saying. You could only hear what people were saying at the front, and even then you had to listen very carefully. And of course, what that encourages is that when you can't listen, people start talking. You start talking, it makes it even harder to listen. And there's the background noise of the casino. All of those things were lessons learned. It kind of meant if you wanted to listen, you'd had to be very close and pay a lot of attention. But it was possible. So we then had a panel. We had Nick Goff on the panel. We had Pete from SBC sort of moderating. We had Russ Wiseman, the chairman at Star Sports Group. And we had Harry Stewart Moore, a gambling lawyer, who one of my team was very interested in hearing from and speaking to, because whenever we have legal issues with the bookmaker, he's always the guy that sort of runs with all of the submissions to the small claims court, things like that. He was the guy in university when he got a parking ticket. Instead of just paying it or forgetting about it, he would spend 3 years challenging it because he just can't let it go. That's exactly the kind of person you need in the team. So it was a really interesting panel. They were discussing things around affordability, the white paper, black market regulation, sharp betting. I think I asked a question of the panel, would we ever be in a situation where we can have a bookmaker just pricing stuff up from what they think it should be? And if we can beat them, we can beat them. Just allow us to beat them. And if you have to remove concessions and boosts and just have your margin on top there, would that be allowed? And the question was, well, what are you trying to beat? What do you think you can beat? And I didn't have something immediately off the top of my head, so I blurted out Altrington Town is what I'm trying to beat, which may be a little bit flippant. It probably was flippant because I saw 6 eyeballs roll at the same time, and they were all like, no, never going to be there. So there's probably some nuances and things that I don't understand about some of these weaker markets and the logistics of bookmaking. It would be nice if we were, but at least it was an honest, open, and frank discussion, and I thought it was a good panel. I think in the future, if we were going to do something like that, we just kind of need to get it a little bit more better sound quality so that more people can get involved with it, because I think everyone at the back just couldn't hear, so you can't blame them for having the conversation. I did want to turn around and tell people to shut up, but one, I'm not that kind of person, and two, people are giving up the time to come to an event like this. And in all honesty, the feedback I got from then onwards was that most people gave good feedback, very positive feedback, because of the networking that they did, the people that they met. I met a load of great people there, the guys from the Golf Betting Club, Duncan, John Roberts from Predictology, who I've got my eyes on for that sort of third place in the data resource at the betting awards, some horse racing, really sharp horse racing bettors, people like that. I've come away from the event with a lot of contacts of people that I'm staying in touch with, and that really is the most important thing. The second amount of food came out at 9:30, blink, and you missed it. And then we got the total from the bar at the end of the night, and the theory was if we only spent like £1,050 and we needed to cover £1,250, we were then free rolling a £200 bottle of vodka or champagne that we could just buy and almost give out to people at the casino for free, because at that point it wasn't going to cost us any money. And we did only spend £1,050 at the bar, but I don't think any of us noticed it by the time that it came to an end at 10 o'clock. Mostly because me, Vivi, Josh from SBC, I think. I say I think because I'm getting a bit blurry at this time. I know some people went over for a curry. He may or may not have done that. Lee, Duncan went down to the blackjack tables, started just splashing chips around with negative expectation blackjack. Like not even not card counting, which would have been impossible with the shoes and the drink anyway, but also like not even playing anywhere near optimal strategy. A kind of do what you want strategy. So we played blackjack for a period of time. Then a number of us late into the morning went into Leicester Square, found some ale house, like a craft ale house. This is where my memory is starting to leak quite significantly. I think we were with some young people. I don't know where the young people came from. By young, I mean like 20 to 30. And speaking to Duncan, pretty much the end of our memories was the Jaeger Bombs being bought. I don't buy Jaeger Bombs when I go out. I only drink Jaeger Bombs, one, when they're bought for me, and two, I've had enough to drink that I forget that I don't drink Jaeger Bombs, because spirits are silly, especially after that much. So the Jaeger Bombs came out, and the memory ends there. Now, there are some flashbacks, and I believe it was time for me to actually go and find some food, having eaten almost nothing and drunk for the entire day, which probably contributed to my tipsiness. I didn't know where I went, but I checked my credit card bill on Monday, and apparently I went to Walk to Walk or Walk to Walk. So that's obviously like a Chinese takeaway place, because there's no bleeding fish and chip shops in the centre of Leicester Square. And I bought presumably some noodles or some rice, and then I went to try and find a taxi, and I remembered if I'm getting an Uber, I've got new credit cards and debit cards since the last time I'd used Uber, so I had to get my credit card out of my wallet to upload the new details, half cut and stood in the middle of Leicester Square in order just to order an Uber. And I put my hand in my pocket, and there was no wallet in there. And I'll tell you the super annoying thing about losing a wallet, other than it's always super annoying losing a wallet. Before I went to London, I picked up my wallet. I normally just pay for stuff on like Apple Pay, but I have like a gambling wallet which is big enough to keep afloat in. But I only take that out if I'm going to the shops or stuff like that. And I remember thinking, you're going to lose this. You're going to have too much to drink and lose this. So leave one credit card behind at home so that when you lose it, you're going to be able to function by getting home and having a credit card whilst you wait for the replacements. So I had the thought that I was going to lose it, and I lost it. And I don't know how much I won or lost in the blackjack. I was sort of bankrolling a few people. So I was like putting the money down for people they were playing, and then I don't know how much we cashed out for. I kind of, in my head, think we were break even. We might have lost, we might have won. I don't remember. But I went with about 1,500 quid in cash, and it was gone. And that was irritating. I had to find a taxi that would then take me back to my hotel. And then I had to find a mate at the hotel to come and pay for my taxi because I had no money. And then the two of us went off to celebrate the rest of the evening until 8 a.m, which was foolish because I'd paid for a hotel room. There was no need to have done that. And so then I went back over to Leicester Square to see if I could find my wallet at 8 a.m. I don't know why I thought I could find it. Was it just going to be lying on the ground? I think I thought I could find the bar or the takeaway. I could find neither. Couldn't really remember anything. So then back over to Euston up to Birmingham International, because of course the schools are on strike. Why wouldn't they be? So I had to get home for the little boy. But as I can't drive back from Birmingham International because I've been drinking all night. Fortunately, I had a friend who was working in that area that needed to go back to where I was living anyway. So talked to him and he could come and drive my car back. But I got to Birmingham International. I realised I've lost my wallet. The wallet has the car parking ticket in it. I even took a photograph of the ticket to prove that I had it, just in case something like this happened. But there's no human being that works at the car park at Birmingham International. It's all automated. Also, brilliant layout this. The ticket machines are within the train station, which is a 10-minute walk from the car park. So you have to pay for your ticket and then walk 10 minutes to the car. I had no ticket to pay. There was some sort of lost ticket for £60 thing. So I paid that because I've still got my credit card on the Apple Pay that isn't lost. And I paid it, and no receipt or ticket was given to me. I'm like, what's going on here? It just didn't give me anything. So went back to the car, thought I could sort it out at the barrier. Went to the barrier, it just doesn't open. I don't know why I thought it would open. But it just didn't. Like, the lost ticket doesn't know the registration of my vehicle. I'm like, how do I get out? I thought about tailing somebody out of the barrier. I have a roof rack on, though, from camping, stupidly, because it's empty. And the barrier did seem to come down. I was timing it. It wasn't going to work. So we couldn't really do that. So I'm pressing all of the buttons, like the intercom. There's nobody answering the intercom. The only thing to do is to park the car, back up, walk another 10 minutes all the way back to Birmingham International train station to find the ticket machines, to then call the intercom, complain that I've paid. They say there was no record that I've paid. I'm pretty sure it said it was accepted. Paid a second time, so that 120 quid. Now I'm given a ticket. Have to then go back to the car, to the barrier. The ticket still doesn't work, but now they've actually given me a phone number, so I'm now talking to them on the mobile phone. They have to figure out which barrier of which car park I'm in the country, which seemed to have taken 7.5 years. Finally, they let us out. And I'm like, I'd better, when I check my bank balance on Monday morning, see only one charge has gone through. But no, 2 charges have gone through. So I either now have to figure out how I can fight this, even though I don't even feel like I've got a proof, other than why would I have paid for 2 lost tickets in a small amount of time? I mean, that should be proof by itself. Or I just torch it and it goes. None of that should be important. Did get to bed. Top parenting this. Put the little boy in front of Netflix and just fell asleep on the couch. So did get to bed around about lunchtime on the Friday. But it's all in the name of fun and good times. Whoever it is that found my wallet, what do you think the chances are that gets returned? Like, if I find a wallet with 1,500 quid in it, it's got my driving license in it as well. I think I'm going to make an effort to return it to the person, and I would hope most people would. Now, look, if the wallet's got a tenner in it, I'm just going to go out of my way as a nice guy to return it. That's what I'm going to do. If it's got £100 in it, I reckon I take a tenner out to cover my time, because I've got to go to the post office, bag it up, buy postage and stuff like that. Do you think that's fair? That's what I would do. I've spoken to some other friends. Some other friends are like, you can't even take a tenner out of it. I'm like, no, I would take a tenner out of it. If it's 1,500 quid, I might even take £100 out of it for my time. And I still think that's fair. It's now been 2 weeks. Has the wallet arrived? No, of course it hasn't. So someone's picked it up. Someone's found the money and not returned it to me. I'm annoyed that they haven't returned my cards and my driving license. And I quite liked the wallet as well, because it's all multicolored and stuff like that. I'm slightly annoyed about the money. It's not the money so much. It's more my irresponsibility does my nutting, because I could predict that it was going to happen, and it did happen. But I'm also slightly disappointed in the human race that it just didn't find its way into the hands of somebody that would have take 200 quid out and return it to me. Take 500 quid out and return it to me and say that was all the money that was in it. I'll never know. I'll just think somebody else found it and lifted some money out of it. But it found its way into the hands of somebody who took the money and binned it, probably. I don't know. I mean, it's 2 weeks now, so it's not going to come back. And that's just sad. It's a sad indictment on the human race. You should all do better. I hope whoever found it really needs the money. I can imagine it might have been found by somebody who has nothing. Maybe they're in a little bit of trouble. Maybe they're in a bit of financial trouble. And I can understand how finding something like that, it makes the difference to them. Just return my wallet. Just do that. I got a bad mood after that, more about my disappointment in the human race and my disappointment in myself. Later that day, my son stepped on his glasses and broke the leg off. And his glasses are only 10 quid, so it wasn't the cost of it. It was the fact that they were his only glasses. I hadn't got him a second pair. I kept putting it off, and now he can't read books until we go and sort that out. So it was the annoyance of having to sort that out. Then I lost my only remaining credit card in the house, but couldn't find it anywhere. Turned the house upside down for like 2 hours before giving up. I'm really starting to lose my patience with myself there. So I take myself to my happy place and I make a meatball sauce. I made the best meatball sauce in the entire world, by the way. I'm sat in the kitchen trying to just meditate through cooking, and I've got a tomato puree tube. You know those tubes that you squeeze them out of? And I'm wearing a white designer t-shirt whilst I'm cooking and looking after a bloody 4-year-old. I mean, come on. And I squeeze the tomato puree out of the end into the pan, and the end that's facing me, the wrong end, the sealed end, splits, and like a line of tomato puree squirts all the way up the front of my t-shirt and my face and my glasses and through my hair, like across the lens. And that should be something that's funny. That should be humorous. That should be where I walk into the other room and go, Ewan, look what's happened to me. I had to stand there by that pan of meatball sauce, close my eyes and count to 700 because I was at the end of my wick at that point. Spoiler alert, that t-shirt is ruined. It's been through the wash about 3 times. I knew it was going to happen at the time. Something about tomato puree and a white t-shirt. That's not coming out. That is stained forever. Looking at the bigger picture, it was a great event. I kind of hate hosting stuff. I did a summer party the week before and I hated hosting my summer party because I kind of think it never goes as well as I think it should do, and I focus on the negatives. And then after my summer party, my house party, I mean, there was one part of the house party where the neighbour did come round at 11:45 and she was screaming blue murder at me. And at the time, I was wearing like the sleeveless jacket. I had neon yellow hair in a Mohican, purple glitter all around my eyes and my shoulders and everything like that. And she's standing at the front of my driveway asking me, saying, I don't know what the hell you think is going on here. To be fair, the bass speaker we created a little nightclub in the carport in the house, with glitter ball, DJ booth, all of that. To be fair, it was an accurate thing for her to say, I don't know what the hell is going on here. It must have been a strange thing for her to be shouting at me. But afterwards, I kind of hated it and thought it was rubbish. And everyone tells me it was great, but I don't see it. And it was the same with the Smart Bash event. I kind of dislike throwing these things, but I appreciate the positive feedback that has been sent back. The main thing people getting is the networking, meeting people of a sort of same level of experience and knowledge around professional betting and the gambling industry. So do we think we're going to put one on in the future? I think so. As long as the UK gambling industry hasn't collapsed in on itself in 12 months' time, it would be quite interesting. We probably won't do it in a casino with a lot of background noise. Probably make sure that any speaker system is working, and I'll make sure that I don't get 1 microgram of food to feed 60 people. Other than that, I think it's very plausible, and I definitely think it's something that we could open up, maybe 100 people, 200 people, make it a ticketed event. And the one thing that I am going to ensure is that Spanky is aware that Smart Bash, if it comes as big as Bet Bash, is absolutely nothing to do with ripping off him. The FIFA Women's World Cup 2023 kicks off in the morning. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. We've got New Zealand women versus Norway women, and then Australia women, Ireland women at 11 o'clock in the morning. If you want to hear Matt Trenhale's viewpoint of why there are so many goals in women's football, have a listen to the BashCast, the Christmas special. It wasn't last year's, I think it was the year before, so that would be Christmas 2021. He made the interesting point that if you look at a selection pool of athletes to pick from in women's football, compare it to men's football, look, the height of the goals is the same in men's football and women's football. It's 8 foot, it's 2.44 metres. So what's the average height of a Premiership goalkeeper? Don't know off the top of my head, but I'm imagining 6'2", 6'3". I'm 5'7". I don't think I have a chance of ever being a Premiership footballer goalkeeper. Not so much because I'm at least 10 years older than the oldest player in the Premiership just now, but because I'm 5'7". My arm reach is going to put me at a disadvantage against similarly skilled or even worse skilled people who are foot taller than me. Now have a look at the sample size you've got for women. You have to have tall goalkeepers. You just have to. But how many 6'2" girls are athletes at the same time? If 0.01% of people are good enough to be professional footballers, athletes, goalkeepers, what's 0.01% of girls who are 6'2" and above? The best goalkeeper by skill is probably 5'5" for women, but you have to be 9 inches taller than that just to have a competitive advantage. So you're picking from a much lower sample, and therefore the overall quality of the goalkeepers relative to the men's is worse. It's just a theory. I don't know how true it is, but it could explain why there are so many goals in women's football. USA are always there and thereabouts when it comes to the World Cup. They won it last time in France, beating the Netherlands. They won it the time before in Canada, beating Japan. They were runners-up in Germany before that. So it's all about the United States. England, perennial third-place playoffs. They beat Germany to be third in 2015. They lost to Sweden to be fourth in 2019. So the two favourites at the top of the market, USA 3.8 to win the World Cup, England 6.6, Spain 6.8, Germany 9.8. Then you've got a couple of teams in the middle, Australia, France, Sweden, Netherlands. Before you start drifting out to kind of the no-hopers, there's a number of teams, Philippines, Vietnam, South Africa, Nigeria, Morocco, Jamaica, Costa Rica, Haiti, Panama, that simply cannot win. 32 teams in this World Cup. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the uncertainty that women's football brings. Now, is there a huge number of goals? Well, in the knockout stages, there was 106 goals last time. 36 matches, 2.94 goals per match. That is quite a lot of goals. Sorry, not the knockout stages, the group stages, 2.9 goals per match. In the knockout stages, a lot more reasonable, 2.375. That aligns a little bit more with the men's game. Overall, group stages and knockout stages, 144 goals in total was 2.77 goals per match. It is more than usual. It should be noted that the USA in their group stage did get 18 goals in 3 games. And so you do have these one-sided games in women's football. I'm just scrolling to the results. United States, they beat Thailand 13-0. Then they beat Chile 3-0. And then they beat the Swedes 2-0. So really all of that came again. 13-0 in a World Cup is... It's kind of like it was athletes versus amateurs versus schoolgirls. It possibly shouldn't be something that's on the international stage, but what are they going to do? Thailand are not in the World Cup this time around. Who do the USA have? They've got they're playing Vietnam in their first match on Friday, whatever the 21st is. So, some of these one-sided matches are crazy. The USA are 1.01 to back and 1.02 to lay against Vietnam, who are 140 to back and 490 to lay, right? But some of these matches, looking at the last traded price, the USA traded at 1.02, England against Haiti 1.03, France against Jamaica 1.04, Brazil versus Panama 1.03, Germany to beat Morocco 1.06. You just never see teams trading at this price in the match odds in competitive men's football other than the odd Germany versus San Marino or something like that, which doesn't, we sometimes have difficulty with these games. Modelling how many goals a team that is 500 to 1 is going to score is always a challenge, especially if, if a team is 13-0 up after 70 minutes. What are they going to do? Take off all of their best players and sit behind the ball? What happens when there's a red card or if it gets a little bit ugly? It's just interesting. And there's uncertainty in the modelling. But there's uncertainty in the modelling both from our side of the fence as modellers, trying to achieve some edges in the market, but also with the market makers and the market itself. There's uncertainty on both sides. So we're uncertain, but they're uncertain. So there's more opportunity because of that. I mean, the worst game that I try and find an edge on is the Champions League final because it's shaped within an inch of its life. In fact, I tend to ignore it. Whereas I certainly prefer the games that have more uncertainty. It can throw up some really weird EV. If looking at the coupons, we might see something like win both halves or a team to win and both teams to score at like 180%. Probably need to be careful there. It probably isn't 180%, but it's probably over 100%. And so drilling into the numbers is quite important. I've had a look at some of the XGs on the Match XG tool that we have. That Spain game that's coming up, Spain versus Costa Rica, we've got 4.88 goals predicted for that. Haven't actually got a number yet for the USA-Vietnam match because I can't quite figure out what the over 2.5 is going to be. 4.88 in Brazil-Panama, 4.52 in France versus Jamaica. Loads and loads of goals. Again, haven't quite been able to sort of drill into the corners. But I mean, for that Spain match, if I can find that, that could be anything between 2 goals and 10 goals. It could be more than 10 goals. And so what I am slightly interested in, therefore, is player goal scorer. And I've been having a look at some of the XGs for some of the players. And I mean, as you would expect, some of them are sort of Haalandish outrageous. I mean, there's a handful of goals who have an XG just now over 1.5 in their match. They're all in USA versus Vietnam. Sophia Smith, Lynn Williams, Alex Morgan, Megan Rapinoe. I mean, Alex Morgan's got an XG. This is a player, has an XG of 1.95 in that match, which is just outrageous. Spain, Costa Rica, Jennifer Hermonzo, 1.34. Esther Gonzalez, 1.43. I mean, Esther Gonzalez expected to score, if she scores 1 goal, she's half a goal less than what the markets are predicting just now. France versus Jamaica, Eugene Le Sommer, 1.35 goals in that. I'm very encouraged to see that Betfred are going double delight hat-trick heaven in this. I don't know if they're going in every single game, but they are going in the first few, that's for sure. Let's bring up Betfred now. Let's see if he mentions if he's doing it in every... It'll be nuts if he does it in like the USA game. Absolutely nuts. Betfred, promotions, the pre-match top price England women to win the World Cup. Oh, okay. What's the price that you're doing? Anyway, who cares? Let's have a look. No, they're just top price. Bet here. England to win the World Cup, 6.0, 6.4 in the exchange, so whatever. That's a nothing thing. Pre-match double delight hat-trick heaven, selected games only. Yeah, he's not going in every single game, is he? Not going in the USA game. Can't blame him. Cannot blame him for that. How about pre-match? In play. Yeah, he's not doing it in play either. Fair enough, Fred. Don't blame you. But he is doing it in a few. So both games tomorrow, New Zealand, Norway, and Australia versus the Republic of Ireland. So Australia are 1.3. New Zealand are Norway are 1.3 as well. Some decent XG in both of those games. 3.11 goals and 2.87 goals. So there's definitely some possibility of a player getting a goal, getting another goal, hopefully staying on the pitch. Had a look at some early double delight hat-trick heaven. There are already 18 players in just a handful of matches, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 or so matches, who are over 100%, including just now Esther Gonzalez, who Fred have gone 3.3. Neutral odds should be done at 2.3 for that. That's a big bet. It's 140% DDHH EV. There's a couple of girls in the England game. I mean, there's another girl in that game, Alba Redondo, at 4-1. Fair odds are down at 3.8. Looks an outrageous price. In the England game, take your pick. Rachel Daly, 11-4. Alessia Russo, 11-4. Bethany England, 3-1. I mean, I'd be keen just to go and get on all of these. I wouldn't do them all in the same shop. I'd be keen to go and get on all of them. Even Ella Toon, 4-1. Lauren Hemp, 9-2, Chloe Kelly, 9-2, any of them. Probably sticking with the top two, probably Rachel. I mean, I've no idea, absolutely no idea who's going to start in this match, and that's going to require a little bit of investigation. Some bigger prices as well in the New Zealand-Norway game tomorrow. Guro Rayten, 13-2, looks like a decent price in the morning, so I certainly want to go out and get that. It is going to come down to who's going to start. Now, we also sort of enhance our player XG numbers by bringing in team news. Team news is really where a lot of the big edges are on the player XG, and the ability to be able to sort of normalize the player's XG to equal the team XG minus substitutes is hugely important. We don't have an API for the team news for the Women's World Cup. We only have 10 competitions, and the Women's World Cup wasn't one of the ones that I chose 9 months ago. We are going to open it up later in the year, but we have added something into the Player XG tool to sort of account for this. You can now make your own lineups. So if we don't have the team news coming through, but you think you're confident, you know what the lineup's going to be, or you've got a source, or you've got some knowledge, you can go into the Player XG tool and you can create a lineup yourself. Just click the button that says Add Lineups, and then you get some drop downs for the home and away teams, and you can pick all of your players, and then you can normalize the teams, and you'll see how your lineups will affect the XG of each player. And then you can trade around, if you're confident, which you should only be doing, well, maybe you're just interested, but if you're confident, you can do this, and then you can trade around the anytime goal scorer price with your numbers, the first goal scorer price, 2+ and 3+, double delight hat trick heaven as well. I thought it was interesting last year. I was watching the America-Thailand game, and those goals, when they went in like the 12th, the 20th, the 32nd. So it was only 3-0 at half time. And I was kind of looking at what the over 7.5 and over 8.5 numbers were. And there were so many late goals, 74, 81, 87, 79, 85, 90 plus 2. So 6 or 7 goals in the last 15 minutes of that game. And if you were watching it, the Thailand girls had pretty much just given up. And I kind of wish that we had these edges where you could model the different expected goals and sort of play around with the overs price. It's something I've looked at, but it moves so fast. It's incredibly difficult for us, especially at bookie bashing, to provide in-play modeling. I can kind of have a mess around with my spreadsheets, but the numbers things happen too quickly in football for our systems to currently catch up, which is why everything is pre-match. I would definitely keep an eye on it. I'd be keeping an eye on things like corners. I'd be keeping an eye on things like over 2.5, over 3.5, match odds on both teams to score, because, what is the XG of some of these lower teams? I don't know. I'm going to have a drill in now, actually. If I bring up the match XG page. I mean, Vietnam are expected to get a quarter of a goal. It's crazy low, and it's really difficult to sort of model with any precision whether they're going to get 0 or fluke 1. Probably not going to get 2. But it really highlights some opportunities in the markets of over goals, match odds on both teams to score, win both halves, things like that. I don't think I'm rushing out to back the USA at 1.02. But those secondary markets, the win both halves, the goals markets, go on, Vietnam. Go get a goal. Come on, the Philippines. There is a wide breadth of opinion that's going to be happening in these Women World Cup matches, and there's going to be opportunities galore. So something definitely to get excited about, to keep an eye on. And I don't know. I do like value betting on the FIFA Women's World Cup. I'm just going to catch up on some emails and some feedback because, well, why not? Both the positive and the negative. some people are like, why do you ever focus on the negative? And they say, just ignore it and don't give it any attention. And to that, I'd say, well, the answer is because I can. And also, I'm just built that if I get 9 bits of positive feedback and 1 bit of negative feedback, I kind of go to sleep thinking about the negative feedback. And so it's my platform, and I'm able to at least address it and get my thoughts out here rather than just locking it up in a key and getting away. So just recently, this was the 15th of July, 4 days ago, I just wanted to say thanks for letting me join. That's all right. No problem. After 3 years of match betting, I finally found this place. I placed a £1 each way lucky 15 on today's racing and won 6.5k. I'm shell-shocked to say the least. Well, good stuff. Obviously, I've no idea how much EV you've banked, right? So if you've banked 6.5k of EV and no other bets won, and that's one, then you've done the right thing. And perhaps you're running way hot, and perhaps you're running cold and you've banked 10k of EV. The EV is the important thing. It's just, I understand it. It is nice just to have these huge wins just sort of land. But the way I can sort of tell with the £1 each way lucky 15, that's going to be a £30 bet returning £6,500. Strap in for the losing run. It's always the case. I think that if the losing run's at the beginning, a lot of people just don't get through it. And you know, you see a lot of people join, try it out, haven't hit anything in the first month, and then that's them gone. And you kind of understand it, but if you join and you hit 6.5k in the first day, then you're going to be around for a long time. And it's sort of both things shouldn't count. It's just EV banked. Keep on banking that EV over and over again, and it will iron itself out. If you run hot, do recognise that you're running hot. If you run cold, do recognise that you're running cold, although you have to have faith in the system if you run cold from the beginning. The number of graphs that I've seen that I find always very impressive are those that 500, 1,000 bets in, they're break even or slightly losing, and then you always see that the upswing occurs, and you're like, I've got admiration that you stuck it out. I think we did have a record the other day. Somebody signed up, and within like half an hour, they then cancelled and asked for a refund, saying it wasn't worth it, it's too expensive, it's not worth the money. And you're like, wow, you probably didn't even get a single bet out. You know what I mean? And so I always wonder, like, I can't complain, but what is it that you thought that you were going to find? Because all of how it works and what you get is available before you sign up. So it's like there's nothing different behind the paywall or the subscription other than you get the live data. I'll never understand that. Another common question actually that we get as well is your site looks brilliant, I'm fascinated by it, please could I have a free trial to see if it's for me? And the answer is always no, you can't have a free trial. And someone came back going, well, if I can't have a free trial, that's a deal breaker. And you're like, well, okay, I don't need you. I mean, an issue is if we offer free trial, there's always going to be people that find a way of using the free trial over and over again under different pseudonyms, and they never pay for anything. So there's a logistical issue from our side. The other thing being, why should we give it to you for free? Again, we're very clear about what we have. And it's not like you would walk up into a restaurant and say, your restaurant looks brilliant. That food looks amazing. I've heard great reviews about it. I haven't tried it, though, so can you cook me a free meal, and then if I like it, I'll consider paying for the next meal? It's like, it doesn't work like that. And one other one, again, is that someone emailed in saying, the site looks brilliant, but I'm restricted in loads of places, so I probably won't be able to sort of use it all. So could I have a discounted price, because I can't get on everywhere? And you're like, what? It's like, who is unrestricted everywhere? It's like, that would get super complicated if we started offering discounted rates based on how restricted you are at the bookmakers. Can you imagine trying to manage that? So I would have a survey. It was like, what limits can you get at Fred? What limits can you get at William Hill? What limits can you get at Bet365? Okay, your subscription is going to be 62.8% of the overall one if you were unrestricted everywhere. And then I've got to take your word for it that if you say you start getting restricted, just, I don't know. I don't know where these people come from. So that was that. We got an email in the other day. which is quite a nice one. Do you know what? Really enjoy receiving emails like this. It was, hey, I just wanted to say a massive thank you for all the hard work that you put in. Although I'm only doing small stakes, this has been life-changing for me and my husband. We now both only work 8 days a month. Bookie bashing profits cover the loss in our salaries. I've been a member for a couple of years and can honestly say this has helped us so much. I dabbled a little bit in multis, but to be honest, I find the steady income from singles is better for me. This will be on horses. And you know what? That's 100% fine. I mean, there is better EV in multiples, but there is higher variance at the same odds. So if that works for you, it works for you. You know, you find the way to bet that is comfortable for your risk tolerance and profile, and you run with it like that. I would certainly not recommend anyone betting compounding EV when it increases the variance and then they can't handle the risk profile. You know what I mean? I'm just going into the golf. Okay, I mean, we've had a little bit of a break-even year on the golf so far. I mean, bleeding McIntyre. I think he was down at 1.4 or 1.5 after that incredible shot on the 18th in the Scottish Open. I mean, I was big on McIntyre. I wanted a big one just before the summer holidays. I was only outright win on him. I wasn't each way on him, so I needed him to win. And the 17th and 18th were the two hardest holes, and when he finished, he was one shot ahead of McIlroy with two to play. And McIlroy just does what McIlroy does. He won it fair and square. He goes birdie, birdie. Birdie, birdie on two holes. They're the two hardest holes on the entire course. You can't complain when someone just wins it, like McIlroy just won it. You know what I mean? I'm not going to lie, hedging for gardeners, the thought crossed my mind of taking some out at 1.5 at McIntyre. The thought always does cross my mind. I do what I always did. I hovered over the lay button and I just decided to, let's just see what McIlroy does on the 17th, and then by then, it was over. Someone said I think McIlroy was 200 to 1 or something at some point coming up the last night. I don't know how true that is or not, but if you got 200 to 1 on McIlroy, I mean, if I'd seen that, I would have taken it. I don't know how far away he was at any point, but yeah. The email says, she says, I'm just going to go into the golf. Still have much to learn on the other trackers and the information you offer. Again, thank you all so much. An interesting one, probably only hitting the horses then. And again, that's fine. I always think if you just hit the horses and nothing else, you're still getting big value for money out of the bookie bashing subscription. I mean, talking about that, someone was saying that we need to triple the price. And they were sort of adamantly saying, please triple the price to stop people coming in. Well, the problem with tripling the price is that if we triple the price, we need to ensure that 66% of people don't leave just to break even. It's very easy for you to say that won't happen. If it does happen, and over 66% of people decide that £300 a month is too expensive, then we're net down and we're at risk of not covering our costs and we have to stop. So it's easy to say it. It's too risky from a business perspective. We have a business that is based on decay rates, meaning we have a certain number of people that need to subscribe to Bookie Bashing in order for us to pay all of our costs, which are very substantial. The amount of cost that we have on IT on a monthly basis, not just the servers, all the work, all the team, the IT team, you know, days will go by, you don't hear from us. Do you know why? It's because we're busy keeping everything working, and everything works great. Downtime is almost zero recently. Scrapers don't go down. Odds are very current. It's because it's an ongoing job. It's not that we've done that and walked away. Always getting blocked, always doing work. If we get any time whatsoever, we'll sort of start enhancing tools and trackers, as we have done recently. So you can now filter by race, filter by race course on the horse racing tracker. You can start counting the number of times you've put horses in multiples or you've bet on it with a little counting system. All of these things, these were like user requests, and when we get time, we can get round to doing them, but often we don't have any time because we're just keeping things rolling. So we've got a huge number of costs, and we need the membership base to not decay beyond a point where we can't cover our costs. Because if we can't cover our costs, then we're in trouble. And it's always a worry of mine that we get into trouble. So what does this mean? Well, naturally, people leave all the time for various reasons. Some people are just restricted everywhere and they can't get on. And that is happening more and more. And that will always happen. So there will always be people that, they got restricted on online soft and they don't want to do shops or exchanges, and so they're gone. So those people will always be leaving. So there will never be a situation where we don't need new people through the door. And we just try and get the same number of people to come through the door as there are leaving. And it's a very difficult balancing act. Sometimes people leave because they're going on holiday or taking a break. Sometimes people leave because they've run bad and busted a bankroll. Sometimes people leave because they've run hot and they've actually, I know something I've seen is that when people win a lot of money, you tend to find that they cancel because they take a break for a few months. So frequently come back, but they take a few months off to enjoy their win. And so with all these people that leave, we need them through the door. And it's quite difficult to get people through the door because not everybody is convinced that a system like this can work, especially if they don't have an experience in value betting or an advantage play and things like that. We did team up with somebody who has been a long-term member back from when we were £10 a month, when we were losing money month on month, I'll tell you that. And he is now our only, if you like, affiliate. We don't have thousands of affiliates. In fact, we frequently get people getting in touch with us saying, what is your affiliate scheme? To which we say, we don't have one because we don't need it, because we don't want thousands of people saying they're affiliated with us and you can get a discount. At the same time as worrying about keeping the membership level from decaying, keeping it static, we also are very conscious it can't get too big. There is a ceiling, and if we burst the ceiling, we implode because the EV goes away. Very conscious on that. This is what some members are saying about why don't we triple the cost. We've got an eye on it. We've seen edges being ruined before. We won't be ruined it this time. Although frequently, sometimes you see some things that aren't real. Like somebody who's beeping outside. Hush down. Is it you that's real? They say things like, somebody said, horses haven't been worthwhile for ages now. And it's simply not true. The number of volume of horses we have on the tracker is as good as ever. The amount of EV, the amount of wins that we hear about. I can only think that comment was said to put people off. You don't need to worry about putting people off. Trust me. And also just the 1 week before then was Royal Ascot, when everybody was celebrating, saying what a fantastic success it was. So it went from 1 week from it being a success to it hasn't been worthwhile for a long time. You just got to be very wary when people say stuff like that. But anyway, we've joined somebody that is affiliated to us to help us with getting new eyes through the door to stop the decay rate so that we can keep membership levels balanced. And he had a sort of promotional video up about bookie bashing. The comments underneath were, I'm going to read them out to you. Sad times, gambling is dead. They won't last 2 minutes, unfortunately. The game is up, mate. This is the next one. No one is betting anymore. The next one says, they shut your accounts down in 2 minutes. Don't be fooled. Stick to casino. Yeah, stick to your 10p free spins. Somebody said, unbelievable promoting bookie bashing. This site is the biggest scam about. That gets me. You can just, Mr. Anonymous can just jump on to these comments and say that the last 10 years of work that we've put up with all the independent proofing and all of the betting awards and everything like that, you can just call us a scam. And things like that stick. Because if somebody hasn't heard of us and then sees that we're the biggest scam around, they don't join. Guess what, mate? If your objective is to stop people from joining and for us to shut the door, one, how would you have joined? Okay. And two, if nobody joins and we just get decay, then we shut down. Me, Duncan, Lee keep all of the value to ourselves and our teams, and nobody else can share with it. So is this what's going to happen? Because that's the result of what you're attempting to do here. This guy's a fraudster. Do not trust the site. Many have been scammed, another person says. Great. Well done. So, I mean, fuming when I saw that. It really doesn't help. And actually, it's not going to help you. Because if we do not get anybody new through and we just decay, that's the only direction it goes in. How much money, I ask you, do you think I should dig into my own pocket to keep bookie bashing running at a loss? Right? Because it was a lot of money from 2015, 2016, 2017. All I'm saying is if this is your objective, maybe think twice about what the end goal will be if you're successful in deliberately throwing around these false statements. The next email in is a technical one from Tom, not from me, unless I email myself in the middle of the night, but I pretty much don't remember doing that. He says, "Hi Tom, hope you don't mind me reaching out. We were talking on one of my clinic calls, Tom and me, about beating the closing line. So when you're betting on steamers, essentially that's what you're trying to do, on the assumption that steamers are more likely to keep on steaming than they are to drift. Then the price is going to keep going down. So if you get it whilst it's steaming and it continues to steam, you beat the closing line. If you get it whilst it's steaming and then it drifts, then you don't beat the closing line. Can you beat that 50-50 sort of goalpost benchmark for beating the closing line? Then you should be profitable. That's why the coupons tracker is profitable. However, he's using the Game Center and the Player XG. Now, on the Game Center and the Player XG, what we do is we price up our own expected goals and then secondary goals markets and player markets based on those expectations. There's no concept of whether a team is steaming in, whether it is drifting or not. So you're looking at kind of static data. The edge really being to sort of beat more illiquid markets, biased markets where the market makers and the players and the exchanges are really, they've got it wrong if you break everything down to first principles with the information that is around at any given time. Are these games that you pick randomly on the Player XG tool or the Game Center going to steam or going to drift? We do not know. You pick one at random, you don't know. So any particular team, therefore, has probably about a 50% chance of drifting, 50% chance of steaming. We can posit that, right? So he's been having a look at his results because we've got this data archive tool now. And on the data archive tool, you can go back and have a look at the closing lines, right? So you can have a look at what you bet at. You can have a look at the closing lines. You can see if you're beating the closing line more often than not. It's a reasonable analysis, actually. I quite like what he's doing here to sort of validate his betting strategy. So he's broken down some numbers. On the Player XG tool, he's got an ROI of plus 23.05% from 264 bets at an average odds of 20.99. First things first, super small sample size. I very much appreciate that it takes a long time to get to a large sample size here. So it's not really a criticism. It's not a criticism to be even looking at the numbers just now, see how we're doing. It takes forever. Same like on the shots on target. It just takes forever to start building up these data sets where we can look at it. On the Game Center is minus 31% ROI, so not doing quite as well from 353 bets. Now, that's in 192 games. Really, the sample size there is 192 because if you're betting on Asian Handicap minus 1.5 and minus 2.5, you're betting on the sort of the same outcome, just a slight shift in it, but with the same team. Only one team's going to steam up and drift there. So the sample size is sort of 192. Very low, especially at average odds 12.0. Super low sample size. Very difficult to gauge anything from this. And when I was sort of drilling down into his numbers, my immediate thought was, well, they're not too meaningful, I'm afraid. Even though it's 192 unique games, it's a lot of games, it's just not enough. I mean, really, we should be maybe multiplying that by 5 before we can get anything meaningful out of it. Regardless, he did break it down for how many times he was beating the closing line or not. And here's where it got interesting. His average edge was 7.33%, but when he placed the bet. But by the time it was at the closing line, it was only 1.8%. So he's not beating the closing line on average. How many times is he not beating the closing line? Okay, 353 bets. He didn't beat the closing line 266 times. And I was like, what? 266 times out of 353? 75%. That's an enormous number. I mean, look, think of it like this. Flip a coin. Blindly flip a coin. 353 times. You should be getting 175 odd heads, 175 odd tails, plus 1. And then if you're beating the closing line, You know, if you've got 190, you're doing really well there, right? Or if you're not beating the closing line really well, really bad would be like 160. He's not beating the closing line 266 times. What are the odds of flipping a coin 353 times and losing 266 of them? I'll tell you what they are, because I sat and worked it out, because it really struck me as almost statistically impossible. The odds are 6 sextillion, 221 quintillion, 887 quadrillion, 159 trillion, 245 billion, 548 million, 638,089 to 1. Now, I am no betting man, but 6 sextillion to 1 is running quite unlucky. In fact, at that point, something's up. Something's up somewhere. I don't know if it's an error in the mathematics. This guy comes across really mathematical. So I'm kind of erring on the side that I trust his mathematics. So one option is the maths are wrong. But I just get the impression, talking to this guy and looking at his numbers, that he will have checked these. So it's an option that the maths are wrong. But I believe the maths are right. I'm sort of dismissing that. The second one is that the data's wrong. And that could be interesting and needs to be looked at. And I don't have the data, so I can't check it. It seems like the most likely scenario just now, the data is wrong somewhere. And the third option is that he's just run so unlucky, something happened that wouldn't happen once every 6.2 sextillion times. But you would dismiss that as well. Something's wrong with the data somewhere, but without the data, I can't really say where. It would be interesting if there's just something wrong in the data archive tool. I mean, I've looked at the data archive tool. It looks like it's returning the closing line, so I just don't know. But I can't comment any further because that's statistically a WTF moment. Similarly as well, on the player XG, he's beating the closing line. Out of 264 bets, he only beat the closing line 64 times, meaning he lost 200 times. Again, statistically almost impossible. There might be something there where the archive tool is returning unnormalized numbers, which would make sense in this scenario. So I've asked for that to be checked, because if it's pre-team news, the data hasn't been normalized, then of course most of the time the numbers are going to be a little bit higher, therefore you're not beating the closing line. And then he's had a look at bet tracker bets, 94 bets placed with an ROI of 9.6%. Of the 94, the EV reduced 42 times, so he beat the closing line 52 times, so there he's beating it. But a lot of those bets actually became negative EV, 22% of them, by the time they went off. However, it should be said that, when betting on these things, it's always important, if we've got absolutely no idea in which direction that the price is going, that you can posit that just taking a bet at the time and not worrying too much about the closing line, if it's going to be 50-50, if it increases or drifts, you'll be okay. And those numbers mean that he's running quite hot. In fact, how hot is he running? It's about 1 in 5.5, 1 in 5.66, 17% chance of success there. So that's running relatively hot. That's a reasonable analysis, and that's not outside of the realms of believability. But if he sort of ran those 94 bets 6 times, he would expect to see an outcome like this once, and he wouldn't do as well 5 times. So he rolled the dice and he got a 6. It's still fairly unlikely, but not impossible. But the other 2 data sets are, well, they're really not possible. So he asks, he's got a good ROI on the bet tracker bets, good ROI on the player XG bets, less of a good ROI, well, a negative ROI on the game center. 192 games is not a lot. In terms of beating the closing line, though, can't explain it because it's so statistically unlikely that it shouldn't be happening. So I would need to see the data on that. But the analysis is a good analysis. It's always important to be checking how we're doing against the CLV. And if I hear more about this, if I get more feedback from Tom, then I'll jump back into the conversation and sort of dissect it a little bit more. Even if we do sort of figure out what's happened there, comparing against the closing line, it's just not enough games. 192 games, we need 1,000 games. So keep on going, strap in. Hopefully that ROI on the Game Center turns around. Hopefully the player XG continues to be profitable, as well as the bet tracker. And yeah, we'll pick this up, hopefully again, in the future. And the last email that comes in is some feedback from the previous podcast, the BashCast, where there were some shots fired. And honestly, I did fire those shots. They came from a place of where I didn't understand what was going on over at Betfair Trading Community. I didn't believe watching the video that I was watching that I could understand where an edge was. My gut suspicion was that it was just finding random chance at extremely low odds, something that could happen in the sample size that we didn't get provided with very easily. And I am open to feedback or a debate or a conversation around why I'm wrong, and I will correct myself if I am wrong. And I've had some feedback, and so, man of my word, let's have an open discussion about this. This comes from, well, I won't say who it's from, but this came in on the 10th of July, sort of 9 days ago. Hi, Tom. Just listened to your latest podcast regarding BTC. The Betfair Trading Community will be BTC from here on, okay? I've previously been a member of BTC as well as Bookie Bashing and have used the over 1.5 goals strategy that you discussed on the podcast. So the strategy was finding particular games using some criteria, that looking at particular leagues, looking at a very small amount of form, and then deciding to back over 1.5 goals at 30 minutes if it was still 0-0, and then laying at something like 50 minutes if a goal had gone in or not, essentially cashing out, okay? And to me, there was no price sensitivity in there. There was no price sensitivity about gauging the expectation of goals in the match. There was no decay sensitivity or analysis between the price at the beginning of the match and at 30 minutes. There was no analysis of what the price should have shortened by or anything like that. And that's what struck a chord with me, because I would have thought that we can come up with an algorithm to work out what the price should be at 30 minutes. And what we should be doing is beating the price, not just taking any price, okay? But going back to the email, I don't think your criticisms of the video are at all unfair, to be honest, but here are my 2 cents, which may or may not be of interest. BTC does not use mathematically sophisticated models for trading. They use basic stats like the one described in Martin's video. They do not calculate true odds. They do not look for plus EV prices. They don't even use XG. They're certainly not using inverse Poisson distributions and whatnot. In their defense, they do generally urge caution about following the strategies blind. They suggest using additional criteria for numbers of shots on target, corners, etc. to decide whether to enter markets or not. They also advocate watching matches closely where possible and learning to read them. That I'll give credit for. Certainly, things can happen in play, and there should be a shift of expectation of the number of goals based on how open, how free it is. Has there been a red card? Has there been any action? Based on pre-match assumptions. So I do agree. There's more to this. It's why we don't do in-play stuff, because that's really hard to do and provide sort of live automated models for. Back to the email. I heard you on some podcast once mention a rugby match where the in-play odds didn't move despite an underdog, Japan maybe, playing much better than expected. That's right. That was South Africa versus Japan. South Africa were 200-1 on the exchanges, 10 minutes in, still 0-0. And South Africa are are really underperforming against an up for it Japan team, and so they shouldn't have still been 200-1. And I went in for them at 200-1, won the bet when Japan won the match. That's an extreme example of the kind of thing they're looking for, I'd say. I suspect that the more successful of the BTC traders probably do have an edge using that method, if only because they claim to make a living from trading over a decade or so, and I have no reason to doubt the truth of that. I think you might find Martin and or Ryan open to discussing it with you, and I'm sure they would do a better job than my lukewarm attempt to defend their methods. Now, to be fair, I agree entirely with the in-play stuff. In terms of people making a living from trading over a decade or so, take 1,000 people and get them to trade on penny stocks. Some will win and some will lose. You tend not to hear about the ones that lose, and the ones that win say they've got an edge. Do they have an edge, or did they get lucky? Look, I'm not saying nobody is a successful trader over BTC. I am kind of still saying that over 1.5 strategy alone, to me, to my mind's eye, simply cannot be profitable more than 50% of the time. It can't. In fact, you're losing edge on commission. So you've not only got to win, but you've got to overcome commission edge. I'm open for a conversation with anyone, even with Ryan or Martin. I have reached out to Ryan and Martin about something else, not about this, in the past. A number of times, didn't hear back from them. So I don't know if I'm going to reach out over this. I don't want anyone to feel defensive or bad about what I'm saying, but I still am after an answer for why this is in any way profitable and not completely random chance. Oh, more shots fired. More shots fired! So it's that time of the year now where I bid adieu and to you and to you and to you and say goodbye for a little period of time. It's the kids' summer holidays, and I leverage my position as a professional gambler to do what I want to do in life, and that is to spend some quality time with those around me, friends, family, lots of children. I'm going to downscale the gambling quite a lot. I've still got runners going to shops, still going to be getting on plenty of DDHH, Women's World Cup. With things like the golf, I still get involved if I can, but I don't go out of my way. So like if I'm sat in a bar or a cafe at 1 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon, and it's convenient, I'll get on it, but I don't stop what I'm doing and go out of my way to do it, if that makes sense. So volume goes all the way down. So pack the car up, pack the tent up, get the paddleboard in, get the kids' surfboards and boogie boards in. If there's enough room, get the kids into the car and go away. Going to do at least 2 music festivals booked into. Going to see if there's a third I can do. Numerous camping trips last year. Focused on Wales. It was so good. We're just going to do Wales again, all the way from the south coasts of the Gower Peninsula, Pembrokeshire, to the north coast, up in Nevin, Anglesey, places like that. And just reconnect, if you like. I've had a little bit of a rough time this year. It's a lot of personal stuff that I don't bring to the BashCast because it involves other people, and many of the mistakes that have been made are mine. So there's no need to be raising this on a platform such as this. However, you find yourself in a little bit of a rut, especially a professional gambler can, with the highs and the lows, and no matter how much you focus on the psychology and dealing with losing runs, they always can sort of raise an eyebrow. You can question your beliefs, not just of mathematics, but of if this is what you want to be doing, or if there is more around. And the answer is there is more around. And the more around for me is spending tangible time with my children, my wife, my friends' children, and that's what we're going to be doing. Spending a lot of time not doing a lot, telling ghost stories in tents, cooking barbecues, drinking wine, hopefully not too much wine. I've got a little spreadsheet that I've made where I award points for various things, and I take points away for various things. I'm going to start at 1,000 points, and I hope that I've got 1,500 points by the end of the holiday, but I could have 0. So if I smoke cigarettes, I'm going to lose points. If I drink so much that I'm starting to get a little bit woozy, then I'm disappointed in myself. If I haven't exercised, there's 0 minutes TV between tomorrow at 3 p.m. when the schools break up and the 4th of September when they go back. So any minute of TV is points off. I want no Twitter. I want no Instagram. I want no Facebook. But if I do open any of those apps, I have to take points off my score. I want to be doing acts of kindness for those around me and even for random people. You know, just this ability to go places. If you can talk to people, make a new friend, chat to people. I love 7-year-olds who go to parties. They meet somebody for the first time and they come running and going, Daddy, I've made a new best friend. Wouldn't it be great at 45 if I could go somewhere, meet someone at 45 and then go running to Jen and tell her that I've got a new best friend? But it doesn't work like that. But that doesn't mean that you can't try and you can't make those connections and you can't sort of work out what it is that we're all doing for 75 odd years on this sphere that is rotating the sun. There is more to it. I've read that the pursuit of happiness isn't everything, and if you purely pursue happiness, you don't have very much meaning in life. Don't know how much I sort of agree with that. I think it depends on your definition of what you're doing to pursue happiness. Is your happiness in a widescreen television and all of the Netflix and Disney Plus subscriptions? Or is your happiness in sort of encouraging those around you to be better people and being a little bit more forgiving and a little bit of a better person yourself? I've got a lot of work to do on me, especially after the year that I've had. I haven't been on my top game. And me and Jen have gone through, I think she's okay with me mentioning this, a little bit of marriage counselling recently, but not from the point of we're at the end and there's no hope. From the point of we've recognised that there's a little bit of a battle on when you're 11 years into a marriage, especially this weird job that I do, where I can be at home, sometimes moping around a little bit of time, and a little bit more understanding and communication that can go on. And all of those things requires my attention. And for those reasons, my attentions are going to be slightly removed from bookie bashing. We've got a fantastic team. All the team, there's going to be no change in bookie bashing other than the results aren't going to be updated until September and no blogs and videos and stuff like that. When I come back, though, I don't know what the future of the BashCast is. I've said a few times recently, I used to do this every week and then it was every 2 weeks. And then sometimes recently it's been every month, mostly because it was a personal diary, but I've got to be very careful in a personal diary not to be rehashing the same things over and over again. I sort of stopped tallying up doing weekly totals of my numbers because, for heaven's sake, that gets a little bit dull and boring after a period of time. And you sort of recognize when you talk about winners, like how much you never talk about losers. Well, the problem with talking about losers is the police come. No, the problem with talking about losers is there's so many of them, like the vast majority of losers. And so what's the future of the BashCast? Do not know. There may be more sort of vloggy type things, shorter format, 5-10 minutes, more frequently with the video on, so you can see my beautiful tanned face, which is going to be 3 stone heavier by September because I can't do any CrossFit when I've totally got the kids every single day, and that's fine. All of that is great. Hope to come back happier, healthier, very interested in what the future dynamic of the betting environment is going to be from September through to the middle of next year. Heaven forbid, I hope it doesn't collapse in itself, but there's always the risk that it does. And if it does, how much fun did we have playing the game that we did for as long as we did? You know what I mean? But I think there'll always be something there. It's just we've got to make sure that we're ever changing. Whatever it is that you're betting on this week, I do hope that you maybe swerve the over goals on the first 2 Women's World Cup matches, and I will see you on the other side of the flippity flip.